Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun runs north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
You boys ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what we're going to talk about? You don't even know.
idea.
Neither do I. That's the beauty of a podcast.
That's what I love about it. Conversational.
So we got Brian Littlefield, yep, and Pete Roberts. I've heard you called both. I've heard
you haven't heard when we're mowing down that lobster tonight, you'll hear my wife call me PETA.
Yeah,
PETA.
like a pita chip.
Like
Pretty much.
pita bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to go by. You guys are the men of men and women behind Origin, but I'd say you guys are at the apex of that organization. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves because I mess up introductions every time that I try. I'll say something that's incorrect or not even remotely accurate. So we'll go clockwise. You get to go first, Peter.
Oh, man, I was going to make B. Little go.
You can, if you're his boss, you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, my name's Pete, or Peter, which I hate that name, but I don't mind Pete as much. And like you said, kind of one of the folks behind the Origin.
Which we'll definitely get into, for sure.
Which is, from Maine. Actually, I'm originally a masshole, so born in Gloucester, the home of the perfect storm. But I moved up here at a young age to Maine, to the North Woods, and my parents said, "Hey, we're moving the kids up to as far as we can get, before we hit nothing." So that's where I reside now, and God, I love it. I love it up here, and it's just peaceful. It's peaceful. Allows room as a creative to think through problems and solve problems, and really, I'd say that it's this old New England, like. Freedom still exists. The freedom to carry a gun, not needing a permit, concealed carry. The freedom to
that's allowed to
without
a permit?
Absolutely.
Montana's pretty open with that stuff, but there's some permitting involved for concealed carry at least.
Yeah, Montana. I mean, and we have a really low crime rate too. The freedom to walk out your back door and piss, and look at the trees and the wildlife and. Man, I just enjoy it, and
I used to do that in an apartment complex in San Diego. By the way,
no way. Did you seriously?
Yeah, I don't know if it's illegal or frowned upon or somewhere in between the two.
I would say, what do they call it? Public indecent exposure.
Yeah, probably.
I'd say it did it at noon.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah,
whatever.
So yeah, man, we built a factory in the woods a few years back, and been expanding ever since. So just having a good time. So that's my short story.
I like it,
Brian.
My name is Brian Littlefield. I grew up in this beautiful state of Maine. I left when I was about 21, spent
Shame on you.
About a decade. I know. I left for school, spent about a decade in Ohio. And I was headed for, I like to tell people I was headed for Arizona and made it not even halfway there. Got sucked into going to Ohio. Stayed there. Ended up through a long process moving back and partnering with Pete. And I've been back for going on 4 years now. And right now I head up the nutritional division of the company. And
we might as well dive right into it. You guys can explain Origin, what it is, what it stands for, what your mission statement is. So however you guys want to slice and dice it, explain what it is that you guys are up to out here in the woods. Because you're in the woods.
Taking over the world, man.
Yes.
You ever notice that Maine is shaped like the tip of a spear?
No, I did not notice that.
Well, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, it's the tip of the spear of American reshoring. And really, when you boil it right down, like that right there, that wave, that is the wave of reshoring. It is the wave, the new wave of, and we've been saying this before it was cool to say of taking back America. And what we mean by that is really the essence of what this country was founded on, putting your hands in the dirt, feeling the vibrations of this country and letting that fuel you to work and bringing back the manufacturing side of stuff. And that's what we've done. In 2013, said, hey, let's build a factory. Started cutting down a bunch of trees in my backyard, basically, and built a timber frame factory. Had a bunch of eastern white pine timber sawn out, and we erected it like an old school barn raising. And we put it up and dropped an old L-beam sewing machine in the middle of the floor. and turned it on and said, okay, what are we doing? Let's do it. And that was the start of what's become a pretty, I guess from outside looking in, pretty extreme endeavor. While everyone else is saying manufacturing's dead, you can't do things here anymore, I call bullshit, and
I think most people say that based just off of price.
Yeah. So you gotta be smarter, right? I mean, it's like with our gis. Well, yeah, if you're, and we make jiu-jitsu gis, if you're going to, let's say you're going to import the product, well, you're gonna spend money not just on the product, but you got to bring it over here. You're gonna pay the customs duties. So how do we decrease that supply chain? Well, if we bought cotton from the farmer and had it spun, and then we handled weaving the fabric, guess what? We can start to think outside the box and be smarter about true or new vertical, inside and that's what we've done.
Yeah.
So that's why we actually are competitive, with imported products. So, I think that's what, I like to say Yankee ingenuity. It's really American ingenuity has fueled, just this awesome country. And I don't know, sometimes I think that people forget about their roots. They forget about how they got here, and really the sacrifices that just a couple generations removed, our grandparents and great grandparents, the sacrifices they made for us to be here. So I reflect on that daily and often.
The philosophy you're talking about, the reshoring and taking over essentially the world. I mean,
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I know that you're not, for sure. Having actually spent only a day with you so far, I can tell you guys are absolutely serious. But the desire to do that had to come long before building that factory. So what drove you to the point where you said, I am going to be the person that does this, and actually got you to start chopping down trees?
When growing up here in Maine, we didn't, cable television's pretty, scarce, and hard to get.
It's not the surface of the moon here, guys.
Yeah, no. I mean, I had two.
You guys
two
have
or three-
electricity?
Sometimes.
Yeah, you're fine. You're
We'll
world
We'll
here.
lose it. Yeah, totally first world. So there was like 3 channels, and one of them was public television. I remember a show growing up. It was a show I used to watch religiously, and it was called Made in Maine. In 25 years ago, they would go from factory to factory to factory in Maine, making everything. And that's always just stuck in the back of my head when everyone's like, you can't do it. There's so many Mainers, there's so many New Englanders that know how to make this shit. It's not even funny. You just got to pluck them back out of the woodwork, and remind them what they used to do and why they used to do it, and give them the why. And so I never questioned, I never doubted if it could be done, it's just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and rolling with the punches. So.
Well, would you guys describe Origin, or at least your first, what you wanted it to be when you first started? It was based around jiu-jitsu, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You got to explain your journey through that, and then what led you to make that choice, because you were kind of talking about it last night, sitting in the bullpen, cooling down, the realization of maybe this gear isn't working well enough for me. So you got to tell the story of where this comes from.
Absolutely. So I started jiu-jitsu when I was 20, maybe 26.
How'd you find it?
Just watching the UFC.
So this was early 2000s.
Yeah, probably mid 2000s actually.
Okay.
Yep. And I just went first day getting choked out by some computer geek.
Nerd assassin.
280 pound like ex football player, right? Nerd assassin. Dude, a minute, boom, out. Okay, let's go again. Boom, almost out. I'm like,
did he actually put you out the first time?
Almost. I saw the stars, but I didn't go out. I actually tapped, and I was like, yeah, that's not happening again.
But then it did.
Then it did. Yeah, and then I got addicted. Like probably within 45 minutes, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And I went right into competition. I was like, let's if we're going to do it, I'm a little bit of an extremist.
Yeah,
a little bit. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And so I went into the competition. And,
as a white belt.
Oh yeah.
How was that?
Pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was still pretty athletic.
It seems like it would be wild at that level.
Super wild.
Like internet moves are being created on the map.
Dude.
Like just making stuff up in the middle of a high intensity.
You just basically went out there and mauled each other.
That's what I figured it would be.
Yeah, it, ugly. So pretty good comparatively speaking. I don't know if we were doing jiu-jitsu, what we were doing, but.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what it is, but you guys are out there getting after it for sure.
Yeah, we're getting after it.
Yeah.
You know, I just remember competing, and I started to compete in the bigger tournaments, you know, the world championships, which I competed in a bunch of times. And I remember just sitting in the bullpen when I was an early blue belt, like, man, I've had a couple of matches. I'm going into the quarterfinal match, you know, for the world championship. I'm sitting here in this gi, and there's no place to warm up, and you're sitting on a wood floor, and you cool down. It's a cotton product, and you just start getting cold. Then your muscles start getting tight, and they can call you at any minute, and it just never made sense to me. And so it was always in the back of my head, like, why hasn't jiu-jitsu performance gear improved? Why hasn't it improved? Football has, soccer has, I mean, water polo probably has, you know, I mean, wingsuiting, like that.
The wingsuiting is, I mean,
technology.
It seems like every 2 years it's a decade of advancement.
So up until 2011, 12, 13, we were wearing the same product they were wearing 100 years ago. Never improved. No one's ever done anything with it. And I just saw that as an incredible opportunity to step in front of this thing and you know, disrupt the market. And so that's kind of what we did. Not kind of what we did. I'd say that's pretty much what happened. And I never thought that we were going after folks who have been in the game for 10 years. I always looked at it like we were going to start new with new folks training, and that we would educate them as to the differences in what we were doing, because they wouldn't know any different.
Yeah.
And
well, they don't have that bias after a decade.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, at first we started importing like everybody else and sending hundreds of thousands of dollars to Pakistan. And I remember I just did not feel good about it. And I just was super torn up about it. And I was over in Abu Dhabi competing in the World Pro competition. And this girl from Poland, she walked by, and I was like, wow, that's good. I was getting ready to go fight against Shanji Ribeiro in the quarterfinals of this open division. And I remember her walking by and being like, man, she's wearing some of our gear. That's pretty cool. It's made all over Poland. And I looked as she walked by, and there was a different logo on the back of it. I was like,
there's no way the manufacturer would just take your design and put another logo on it.
No way.
That never happens.
I was already like, man, we've got to like figure something out. This doesn't feel good. And so on the long ass flight home, I'm sure you've made that flight.
It's time to think.
Dude, I thought, and I was like, we're either shutting it down or we're going to make this shit ourselves. And I just took a hard stance, back against the wall. We're either shutting it down or we're making it. And so got off the plane, called my father-in-law, Joe, called a friend of mine, Tim Couch. They brought their chainsaws over, and we started cutting down trees in my backyard.
What was the first product that you brought to market?
The gi. And we needed to become experts at making this gi. And so we had like 20 SKUs, and we shut everything down, and we were going to make one product, and we were going to make it the best in the world. And that's how we started. And, you know, it was like I knew we had to weave fabric, and we had challenges with that. And we, you know, I was like, oh, shit.
It's the internet. You can say whatever you want on this podcast.
Damn, we're going to have to import fabric. No, we got to be able to weave it. And just couldn't figure out. And I was like, maybe this isn't possible. And so we started importing fabric, and I kind of played mental gymnastics, and I talked myself right into it, you know.
Where were you importing from?
Pakistan.
So you were importing the fabric from, okay.
Yep. And then I was like, this isn't going all in. It's not going all in. I'm giving myself an escape route. And you know, there's a lot of companies in the United States of America that make American-made goods from, you know, international imported materials. Most of them.
I was approached once, and a guy was talking to me about T-shirts. And it was explaining that if you get a foreign-made product, but it goes through 2 or 3 steps, it gives you the ability to say made in the USA. But if you trace the origin backwards, it's absolutely not. So there's that little bit of a workaround that will fool most people, because they're just looking for the tag that says made in the USA. And
you know what? It's not just easy to fool people. It's easy to fool yourself, you know? And I don't want to take an elitist perspective like, if you're not using 100% American supply chain, you're not doing a good job. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying for me, didn't make sense. For me, it didn't feel good. And I knew that I was giving myself an out. So, man, we found an old friggin' loom in Lewiston, Maine, on the second floor of this mill building that had been shut down. They had either recycled or exported everything to China. And this woman, she kept this loom, and it was there. And she wanted to, you know, save the heritage and make a museum for it. And, man, I went in and I talked to her. I through the grapevine after over a year of searching for the knowledge and the machinery. And we walked up there. We had to sign releases to get in. She unbolted the doors.
Oh, wow.
And there it was sitting in the middle of this 500,000 square foot abandoned mill. And, man, and I got chills.
It's like
thinking about
Raiders
it.
of the Lost Ark
Dude,
type
it's
stuff right there.
Dude, it's unbelievable. And
Was there a ray of sunshine coming down
there
just on the
was,
loom?
there was, because it was a sawtooth building. So, you know, the light shining through.
Yes.
Dude, and it was just
Yes.
sitting there in the middle of this mill. And the boards were punk. You had to watch where you step because the
I love
extreme
this.
heat and cold, the boards are just punk. They're busted up. And I got over to it and I looked at it and she's like, well, there it is. And I said, what are you doing with it? And she's like, well, we're trying to build this museum. And so we've just stripped it down, taken the parts off to use in the museum. And I was like, well, can I buy it from you? And she's like, yeah, you can. And I was like, well, how much you want for it? And we didn't have a bucket to piss in. You know, we were bootstrapping this thing. And she's like, $2,500, something like that. $2,500, $3,000. And I was like, done.
Yeah.
And I made the deal with her. And then I called the moving company. I was like, okay, I'm moving this 9,000 pound loom out of the second floor of the Bates Mill. Like, cool, $20,000. I was like, oh, what?
Can we get a second opinion or / quote on that, please?
Exactly.
Right.
So I called my father-in-law, Joe, and he's like, don't worry about it. We'll get it done. And so a bunch of my students, Jiu Jitsu students and friends, we got together and we pushed that friggin' thing across the floor. It took 9 guys 8 hours, or eight guys 9 hours to push that thing across the second floor. Joe even found this old forklift, hadn't been running in over a decade. He rigged it up and got it running, and we had to put steel plates down so it would move, and just unbelievable challenge. And we got it to the door, and we poked the head out the door in Main Street, Lewiston, Maine, and we attached chains to it. Another friend had a freaking, what do you call that? Crane. And we freaking dropped it on a trailer and drove it back.
Is that one of the looms that's downstairs at the factory
The
now?
one I showed you yesterday, weaving the black fabric.
Which I can't even begin to describe the complexity involved in that machine. Let's just say that there's probably 1,500 ways you could lose your fingers by even getting near that thing with the moving pieces and parts. But the fabric that comes off of it is unbelievable.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. And that was, you know, and dropping that loom in our factory, our little freaking 6,000 square foot factory, you know, snugged up in the woods, you know, dropping that there was the start. It was the true start of this company. It's truly, I say it was the restart. You know, Origin, yeah, we started in 2011. We really started the movement in 2013 when we turned that switch on. And dropping that loom in there, it took months and months. It took 40 man hours to clean it.
Yeah, I was going to say, what year was that made? I mean, what year
80.
technology are we
I think
talking
it was
about?
80.
Okay.
81. Yep. So,
I mean, it's one of the more intricate pieces of equipment I've ever. I can't describe it.
the engineering of it is unbelievable, and I don't know if we talked about it yesterday, but it runs off punch cards.
No, we didn't
yeah,
talk about that.
Yeah, they studied those early looms for early computers. That's how they designed computers originally, was studying looms. So,
Really?
Yeah. So the punch cards, there's 2 punch cards. The one in the brain, there's all these fingers, and so I would draw out the design I want for pattern, and then we program it in this typewriter, and you spin the wheel and it punch, and then you spin the wheel and it punch, and then you take that card, and then you put it in the loom, and the loom reads it, and these little fingers read it. It's freaking insane. And these little fingers read it, and then these all these frames going up and down, and that allows the yarn to pass through at whatever rate for the weave to come out. And so we developed 2 weaves. One is dragon weave, and it's a proprietary blend
That's
fiber
the Rift
weave,
right?
It's the Rift weave, yeah. And the other one is American Smart Pearl, and
Which is what the black material was we saw
that's
yesterday.
right. Yeah, exactly. So, man, it was It was a challenge, but once we started that momentum, like the first one is the hardest, right? It's probably like jumping out with a squirrel suit on, or wingsuit. The first time is the hardest, but after you do that, so we bought our second loom, third loom, fourth loom. We had to buy some for parts, and dude, we had to find this old timer to teach us how to use it. And I asked him, like, dude, how many of there are you left? And he's like, there's a lot. There's a whole bunch. And I was like in New England, how many? And he's like, at least 5. I was like, at least 5.
That's
5.
not a bunch. But that knowledge, though, not being used, that's just going to be lost.
So he's been passing it down.
How many of those looms still exist, do you think?
So I found a layer of them.
A layer.
It's pretty crazy. We ended up going and pulling.
But where are they made, first off?
These ones are made in Italy.
Italy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they got on a boat, got over here in the 80s. All right.
Yep. Italy's like one of the textile capitals, and historically speaking, that's why we're going there to film about denim.
Okay.
So
they were the ones who created the technology of this particular loom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make like the sort of the Cadillac of looms over there in Italy. And we ended up going to this location. What was it? Sanford?
Mm-hmm.
I think they probably make the Lamborghini of limbs.
Yeah, there you go.
Cadillac of looms.
I know.
We got to stick with the Italian theme.
That's true. So we go into this. Pete says layer, and it really was because we call the loom the dragon.
Yeah.
And it was like there was a bunch of sleeping dragons because you open the door, and holy shit, it was a sea of them just left for dead, just crammed one next to another, pinched together.
I found this old Italian it was his international woolens, and he had gotten so frustrated with everything the town was trying to do to him up here in Maine in the workforce. He shut the doors and walked away and left everything, and it's all still there. And so we've bought a bunch of machines and resurrected those machines. You're talking like machines that are completely rusted out, that you have to strip down to nuts and bolts and deionize and get the rust off of them and put it all back together and then make it run. So it's definitely not easy. We actually had the History Channel. They were, dude, in 2014 or 15, they had a production crew come up and they followed us. They were going to do this big series, but anyways, they followed us around as we pulled some of this machinery out of these old mills and got it working again.
How do you get that? So the machines you found, are they in Italy? That layer?
No, that was in Maine.
Oh, what?
Yeah. In Maine.
You
Everything
guys do have
found.
things hidden in the forest.
No, straight up. Straight up. Well, like the New England mills, they're based around, a water source, rivers, because that's what powered everything. We were talking on a podcast with this woman who helped us find that loom. We just did a podcast with her, and we were talking about the canal system. The canal system they built out of granite to allow the water to flow and power the mills, and that there's probably enough granite to build a fourth Great Pyramid. And they did everything with horses and mules, and they did it all by hand. And anytime I'm feeling sorry for myself, I just reflect back on that.
A little perspective.
How can you not do it with the technology we have today?
Right.
So Brian, how'd you get involved with Origin?
It's kind of funny. So I was in Ohio at the time. I was going back to school for business, and I was training Jiu Jitsu.
How'd you find it?
Of course.
Find what?
Jiu Jitsu.
It's a funny story. So when I was in school, like freshman, what do they call them? Freshman 15 or something? Is it like pounds?
The
okay,
freshman.
Well, it was like freshman 50.
Yeah.
You're talking about college at this point?
Yeah.
Put on some mass.
I moved to Ohio and I put on some weight, and I was being completely inactive, and I had a buddy of mine get me into the
You got to tell them how much you used to weigh, dude.
gym. Yeah, I was like 265 pounds.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'10" and a half if I'm lucky.
Strong work.
Yeah. Yes.
That's good. You put the effort in.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
So your width might have matched your height.
Pretty much.
All right.
Yeah. So I became obsessed with like working out and nutrition, just kind of switch that had happened. And I was going to lift at this gym and constantly, and I ran into this guy who, oddly enough, ran the cafeteria at the school. And he would hook me up. I would go in and he'd be like, give me $1. So I'd give him $1, and he'd give me a huge tray of like turkey meat, just straight turkey meat, because he knew I was like trying to, cut and get big. And oddly enough, we ended up becoming really good friends, and there was a jiu-jitsu school within that big fitness center. And he just bugged me over and over and over again to the point where I was like, dude, okay, I'll come wrestle around in pajamas with you if you just leave me alone.
I had a similar experience.
That's why I laughed when you said that. Yeah. So that's how I ended up finding jiu-jitsu. And then when I found out that there was a gi company.
Dude, you skipped the whole fighting MMA thing.
Fighting MMA. Well, yeah. I did.
Yeah.
I started because I was losing weight, lifting, and stuff like that. And I was also doing boxing.
This is good for people to hear because they think everyone thinks they're the
I know.
man.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So everybody does think they're the man. And I was doing boxing. I was lifting. I was losing weight. I was getting pretty big at the time because I was into that at the time. And I thought I was the man. I'm like, oh, I'm boxing. I'm getting in great shape. I felt like I was on top of the world. And then I went into jiu-jitsu and got just completely mauled, of course. Like,
does
everybody.
anybody not have that as their first experience / story?
Every single person.
That's what I'm saying. It's the same
Yeah.
thing every time. I thought I was the man. I went in. I realized I wasn't, and it's either I never went back or I'm all in.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And those are the two mindsets.
Yep.
They
Yep.
really are.
And I took my first MMA fight after like 3 months of training. My coach was like begging me not to, and I did it anyway, and got my face punched in and got just mauled. Ended up going back and fighting again and doing very well. But it was going to jiu-jitsu for to be an MMA fighter and like completely falling in love with jiu-jitsu and not even caring about MMA.
Yep.
On school breaks, I was coming to Maine and I sought out training, and really there was like 2 places to train in the state of Maine that anybody really cared about. Hope I don't hurt anyone's feelings, but there was this guy Alexei in Portland, Maine, and there was Pete's school in the middle of nowhere. I remember the first time I went to go find the school, I got lost for an hour, and it was on the second floor of the factory.
Yeah. In the factory.
Yeah.
Like the sewing machines and then the mats.
Save space, man.
Yeah.
I got to train, man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm buying mats for my garage, and there's going to be
awesome.
workout gear and T-shirts around, and watch your head on that wooden post over there.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm going to school for business at the time. I had a professor tell me, American manufacturing is dead. Get involved in the service industry. And I had another one say it was cyclical. I walk into this mill, mini mill, micro mill, and there's a loom, and I'm just like, there's a loom here. I'm there to train, and I'm just like, there's a loom here running. There was only one at the time. It was very small, but it was like there's a loom here, and I know it sounds obsessive, and then Jocko has said the same thing. It's like, unless you've stood in front of one and watched it run, you truly cannot understand.
That's
how
I can't even. I
ridiculous
didn't watch it run yesterday, but I can't describe the complexity of the machine. I can only. Yeah, it stops you in your tracks, and you look at that thing like, what is this?
Yeah, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming back, and I think the last time that I came up before we started doing something together, I was just like, I got to get involved. And at that time, I had graduated school. I was making pretty good money. I had a small side business on the side with supplements, a little retail spot. I was running a jiu-jitsu academy at the time, and I just went back to, after talking to Pete, I went back to Ohio. I told my wife, hey, I'm going to quit my job. I'm putting the business on the hold, and I'm going to drive around the country and sell gis out of my trunk.
What were her thoughts on that business plan?
At first she was like, you're crazy. Of course. Typical response.
And Meg really, really meant it. If you know Meg, she really means it. Like,
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Yeah. She's like, no, you're crazy. And I was like, I know. And you married me, so deal with it. But yeah, no, it worked out. So ended up having a lot of success initially. I got to travel around the United States training with everybody.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. And it grew to the point where I needed to relocate. So I moved back at that same time. We had the opportunity to partner up with the nutritional division. We purchased out another company and rolled that in, and that is now Origin Labs, and it's a division of Origin. And after working with the manufacturing side of things for a few years, I ended up transitioning over, and now I'm heading up the nutritional division, and that's it. And it's just been a absolute roller coaster. I like to tell people we're trying to hold on to a rocket ship with like string.
It seems like it. I mean, it's growing. I don't know if a lot of people realize the Origin has multiple heads to it. There's the manufacturing, soft goods, I guess I would say, apparel. You guys are going into the boot world, which is going to be interesting to see how that goes. Those boots looked amazing.
It's going to be good.
And then there's the nutritional side.
Yes.
And then, talk about some of the products you guys have on the nutritional side, because I don't know if most people realize that that's an offering as well.
Yeah, definitely. So when we ended up partnering with Jocko, we completely rebranded.
Hold on. So scale of 1 to 10, how crazy is Jocko? 10 being high.
Oh, I don't think he's crazy at all.
I was going to say 12.
Yeah,
he's intense.
I guess
he's intense.
There's good crazy and there's bad crazy.
Yep.
So on a good crazy, he's a 12.
Yeah, he's a 12.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, don't get me wrong. I love him to death,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
take
yeah.
every opportunity I can to poke holes on him a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And then I run from him.
Definitely.
Hashtag up before Jocko.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he's the best. But it's funny. People have a perception of what they think he's going to be like, and then if you've known him for a while, it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
He's just a surf bum.
At heart,
Yeah, at
with a
heart.
caveman
Nice.
face. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yep.
And strength.
And a jiu-jitsu
Yeah.
geek.
Have you rolled with him yet?
Very briefly, and then I got out of his arm's reach as fast as humanly possible.
Good.
And put Dudley in his arm's reach.
Oh, there you go.
He's a gorilla.
You think? He doesn't look it at all. He doesn't look like if he grabbed a hold of
subtle.
your arm or gi or face that you're not getting it back until he decides to give it back.
Yeah. Yeah. He tapped me with something that I said, like, I'd seen that before, and I'm like, I would never tap to that. And he caught me with it. I was like, I feel very little right now. So, yeah, he is. He's a gorilla. So, when he came and when kind of the inception happened with Jocko being on board, I guess I would say.
Yeah. Becoming a partner.
We rebranded the whole line of nutritional products. So we have an extensive line. We have the Joint Warfare. We have the Super Krill. Super Krill was the first thing we did. He was a big proponent of krill oil. And
is there a big difference between krill oil or like the omega-3 fish oil? Largely the same thing?
Huge, actually.
Okay.
Totally different.
Shows you exactly what I don't know.
So krill oil you have to take significantly less because it's way more absorbable.
Okay.
And you also get things in krill that you won't get in fish oil, like high quality phospholipids, astaxanthin, and things like that are like way more beneficial than just omega-3s.
Okay.
So he was a proponent of that. We wanted to make a really, really good krill, and that's what I feel like we did. So we called it Super Krill. And then that was very successful. Then we rolled out Joint Warfare, which is kind of our flagship product. It's just kind of taken off on it's a beast of its own. I think people really find that it's effective at reducing that inflammation, joint pain, and just being able to like
function without it.
Back. Yeah, we
Don't
both
function
live on
without it.
Jocko has a bum knee right now, and he's like, dude, I'm taking 9 and it's helping. I'm like, yeah, well, take 6 because that's what it says.
As I say, I believe that dosage exceeds any recommendation of anybody ever.
Yeah. And then we formulated Discipline, which he takes like 6 scoops of, and it says like take 4. So
yeah, he definitely works at the next level.
Yeah.
Level 12.
So I'm saying, how crazy is
Over the top,
Yeah,
always.
he's over the top.
So, yeah, with the Jocko products, what ended up happening was he's like, I want to make products that I want for me.
Yep.
I don't care about like the top selling category. I don't care about the top selling ingredient or what's trending. He's like, I just want to make what I feel like I need. And these are the first few things. And then as time has gone on, we've added things. So
I think those are the best products as it is anyway. It's you're filling a niche for yourself.
Yeah.
And then find somebody who can make it better than you.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we've had that. And then of course we added Molk, which is like created its own like little,
Is this microphone still on?
I don't think so.
I don't think it is.
I noticed that a second ago.
You better check it. How about now?
There
Oh,
we
I'm
go.
back. See, I caught it though. Professional podcaster. We're good.
Yeah.
Why can't you just call it milk?
Milk. You know what's funny is
Where does milk come from?
Who do you think it comes from?
Yeah, the umlauts on top of there. It's like, well,
Jocko.
where does he get it from?
he just made it up.
He just made it up.
Damn it, Jocko.
He's like, it's Molk. Why? Because it's not protein. So obviously Molk is a protein product, like if you put it in a category, but
Yep.
because we did a a time release blend with not just simple whey concentrate. It says whey concentrate, whey isolate, casein, and egg, and they all digest and kind of trickle into your system to feed muscle recovery at different times.
Yeah.
And then added probiotics and digestive enzymes to kind of keep your guts in check, because most protein is like going to wreck your guts over long periods of time. So yeah, it's
He was like, how do we get like Hulk, bulk, milk, and monk, which is what it's sweetened with is monk fruit. He's like, let's just call it milk.
done.
Cool.
Okay.
Milk it
I
is.
can envision that playing it out exactly like that.
It's
as well.
exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
We actually did it. We did a new one. We have a new product, and it's for immune support. And, and so he came up with Cold Killer because it's for immune support, and so
It's a great name.
It's a great name. So we just ran with it without checking with legal first, our legal department. So we just printed up and we launched and everything like a week ago. And our legal department's like, yeah, let's not do that. So we're in the process of changing that up to be Cold War.
Yeah. Butted up against somebody else's IP.
Yeah. No, that
no,
is
actually. So because cold technically is a scientific name for a disease, and killer being a definitive term, essentially you're claiming that you're killing the common cold. So because
what's wrong with that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why not? So the FDA doesn't exactly they frown upon that.
They don't
sort of
appreciate
thing.
that.
They didn't support your particular stance on that.
No.
Yeah.
So now it's Cold War, which I really like too, a lot.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
Stays in kind of the Jocko-ish narrative,
It does.
if you will.
Exactly.
If you will.
Yep.
He's just like, when we sent it over, he's like, it's like 10 minutes between texts, and he's like, I like it. That's a good thing about him. If it's good, it's good. You know?
He'll tell you the truth.
Oh,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
He will definitely spit the truth. And you may not like it, but he'll tell you exactly what it is that he thinks.
Man, I'd say he's in jiu-jitsu, like he is, after the UFC and Joe Rogan, I think Jocko has the greatest influence on jiu-jitsu. After
I can
those
see that.
two.
I don't have enough time in that particular pond to judge that well, but you guys do for sure. I mean, you've been at it now for how long?
Since the mid 2000s. So.
And how far did you go in the like? What was the apex of your competition? Because like you said, you dove in quickly.
Yeah, and so I'd say the apex is, so I have what's called a curse. It's called the curse of the quarterfinals.
Okay. I think I know where you're going with this.
I never won a world championship. And I only ever fought an adult world championship. So, yeah, I've lost in the quarterfinals at blue belt twice. I lost in the quarterfinals at purple belt. I lost in the quarterfinals at brown belt world championship adult. And then I won the World Pro Trials in Canada, and they ship us over to Abu Dhabi to compete. And I competed in the black belt division as a brown belt. And in the open division, I also lost in the quarterfinals. So I seemed to play up to the potential, but never get the W. That was a stacked year, though. 2012 was the last one, black belt. It was freaking Andre Galvão. There was Satoshi, Rodolfo Vieira.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume these are awesome names. I don't have a clue who you're talking
awesome.
about.
They're pretty awesome names.
Pretty much the top. They're all going to go down as the top 10 and probably
Ever.
It was just like a pinnacle. And Pete was over there competing as a brown belt in the black belt division. That's actually how I think I found him. Probably, I'm like, hey, this guy, because I was training under Salo and Shanji Ibero, two brothers, and they're known as like between those three.
Best.
Yeah, those three. There's like Shanji, Salo, and Hadra Gracie. Those are really like the top three. If you're saying like open weight competitors of all time.
Bouchesha's
followed
in there
up now with Bouchesha. But
that's a super sweet name. It's way better than Andy.
Best name.
yeah, and he fought Shanji, who I was under at the time, as a brown belt, and he was up on points, and he ended up getting caught in very short time left in the match.
A few shots left, yeah.
But to even do that at that time was just like no brown belt in the world was giving Shanji
those guys a run
fight.
for their money.
No.
Yeah.
So I was just like, this guy's in Maine. All right, I'm going up there to train. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was it. I came back, competed in the world championships, lost in the quarterfinals, and I was like, my heart wasn't in competition. It was in
Yeah.
the stuff we're doing now. So
When you were competing, how much of your time, effort, and energy was directed towards that goal?
all of it.
I mean, what would an average training day look like for you?
So we would train hard, like really hard, 3 days a week for a couple of hours. Light, I would travel. So I would travel to Boston weekly or Connecticut. And so I'd drive 4 hours down, train for an hour and a half, drive 4 hours back, Boston.
Dude.
Then I'd go to Connecticut, 6 hours down, train for an hour and a half, 6 hours back. Yep. And then I would do strength and conditioning 3 times a week, and that was 2 hours. Functional strength and conditioning, some Olympic lifts, and yeah.
But your front side focus was completely on those competition environments.
Yeah.
What do you think hung you up in the quarterfinals so much? Were there any patterns that repeated themselves, or why do you think that it just stopped there?
Yeah, not trusting my game as I got deeper in, just playing jiu-jitsu as I did in the gym, doing it on the mats in competition. It's hard to, once you can flip that switch. And I remember Tanquinho, Augusto Mendez, Tanquinho was saying that to me, like he struggled with the same thing, and he lost in the quarterfinals for years and years and years. And
So
he
you're saying there's a
finally flipped
difference
the
in
switch.
mentality? You would approach it differently with people that you knew in a non-competition setting, and you needed to play
Got
that
it.
game in the competition?
You got it. Because I could compete against anybody in the gym and in competition. I just, as I got deeper into the tournament, I just seemed to lose it a little bit. And I wasn't like flustered. I just started thinking about it more than just going out there and competing. You know what I mean? I was thinking about it, strategizing. I'm big, obviously, at strategizing and thinking about the game. I'm big on visualization, and seeing the moves. But I think I would overcompensate a little bit. And
How much, like in your head too much?
yeah, a little bit. So, and I don't know, man. Yeah.
So you guys know my experience level. If you're in your head too much, does that just allow your opponent to get ahead of you? So you're playing
Yeah.
defense and he's playing offense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're stalling out your ability to move by having to think about how you're going to move. So once you just move and you go and the other thing is this is going to sound really strange, but as you advance, what you're actually going to see in the picture in front of you is angles and opportunities instead of a body. Okay. So for instance, you're actually going to be looking at the negative space of the person in front of you, not the positive space. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So
I mean, conceptually, I understand what you're saying. I'm definitely not looking at the world like that right now.
So if you're in front of me and you're in my guard, right, and your elbows are in and your base is wide and your haunches are back and your posture is good, all I can see is a silhouette. The moment I see the light under your elbow, I know I can arm drag you. And that's in the most simplistic terms. And so the idea is to, especially from a guard position, is, well, if I off balance this person just a little bit, guess what? They got to catch themselves. They're going to adjust with a knee. They're going to adjust with an arm. They're going to adjust with their hips. And so you're looking at that negative space and you're attacking it. And so if you're always attacking the negative space, you're always on offense. If you're thinking about where you're going to attack, that means you're looking at the positive space and you're only seeing the positive space. And I've never heard this explained this way. This is just my artsy-fartsy kind of kid way of explaining it. But that's what starts to happen. You start to see lights and darks, positive and negative space, and you start attacking those things. And once you can do that, and understand that concept, you can really excel. And when you stop fighting and start training, big changes happen.
I've never heard it described like that. It's kind of fascinating, actually.
It is. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. You do, as you progress, you start to look at the spaces rather than like what that person is doing. In the beginning, you pay so much attention to what that person is doing because you don't even have the
Sweat dripping in your mouth, the chub on your face, smashing your nose,
right?
The stank of the person.
Yeah.
Not quite that bad.
You don't even have instinctual moves yet, like things that are just gonna, like your reactionary moves aren't even there yet. So you're thinking about every step. So you're not even looking at those things yet.
Did you compete in jiu-jitsu at all, Brian?
I did not on. I only competed at. I at the highest level once. I got knocked out in the second round.
How'd you get knocked out?
I lost on knocked out of the
Oh,
bracket.
okay. I was going to say, what kind of competition?
Yeah,
you in
an
here?
elbow.
Yeah.
You know,
Boom.
soft spot to the head, like that
Oh.
guy you were jumping with.
Yeah,
Boom.
that was his fault though.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, I lost in the second round.
What belt were you?
Purple belt.
Okay.
Yep. I have yet to compete at brown belt. Yep.
Do you plan to?
Yes. Yeah. I actually said I wouldn't. I actually told Pete this. I wouldn't. I don't want to be promoted until I've competed at every belt, because I competed a lot at white, blue, and purple.
Do you find value in that?
Yes.
Because we were talking
Absolutely.
about, we did your guys' podcast.
It's like 6 months of training, one competition.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Your mind grows so incredibly in a competition, because number one, you're going to run into people that you never train with.
For sure.
You're running into someone that you never trained with that is literally trying to kill you within the rule set.
Yep.
And the added pressure causes at least for me, what it ended up doing was my like emotional resilience on the mat. It allowed me to be way more emotionally intelligent on the mat, just like that, like the blink of an eye. I would roll back into the gym afterwards feeling just like levels of relaxed. Yeah. Just
Really?
it's weird.
Confidence.
Confidence.
So much confidence.
What if you went to the tournament and didn't do well? Would you still roll
Doesn't
with that
matter.
additional confidence?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Going through the motions of, you know, putting your gi on, everyone being around you, everyone sizing everybody up, going into the bullpen, getting on the scale, waiting to be called, finally being called and having to go from 0 to 100 on the mats, you know, having that Colt Tommy under your feet, and you've never met this person. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of growth happening just to go through that process.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like the immersion camp is very similar, because we often say like, oh, if you go to camp, then it's like 6 months to a year of training in a week. You know what I mean? Because you're training with people from all over the world, all different associations, but a non-competitive environment, but the same type of growth. So it's like a good option, like for people who some people, they're just, I think everyone should compete once. I think that's,
At least, yeah.
I think everyone should, just to feel it, you know? But I don't hold anything against anybody that decides, nah, it's just not for me. Cool. Yeah, it's fine. But it's just, it's a different thing. I'm not one on getting too comfortable. And, you know, you get into a rhythm with the same guys in your academy, and in the moment maybe you're on a trip somewhere and you're training with someone else, or it's different. You know, okay, is this going to work? You know, is it going to work? Am I confident enough? Are my holes going to be exposed? Yeah, all those things are going to happen. So.
Do you guys find when you advance in a belt, there's what would be the term? In the competition setting, you're going to have to go through a new normalization. Like you probably don't do as well at your new belt, and then you work your way through better performance just because you're leveling up against the people you're competing with. Again, you know what I mean? Do you have to like get comfortable in that saddle every time that you level up, or does it? Since I have no experience in it whatsoever, I'm just curious.
I have some strong opinions on that. I have seen belts break people, and I have seen belts make people. Like Ty's a good example. You know,
Yeah.
Ty Dolla Sign, Ty Weed, you know, Ty Money, Ty, what's the word I'm looking for?
Ty Supply.
Ty Supply. Yeah, Ty. So he just got his blue belt, and he was a white belt very recently, and, you know, just playing with him. He got his blue belt, and all of a sudden he got really good within 2 weeks.
So, some guys immediately play up.
They just play up.
They're just boom.
Yeah, boom. They're
it's
there.
like that's what they needed, and then some people.
So they had it, but they needed
had
that
it.
physical
Yep.
something to get them-
reward
okay.
to recognize them for having it, and then it's just
And then you're saying the other side of that coin exists too,
yeah.
where they just can't. I guess they put probably pressure on themselves. And,
Ego gets in the way, probably a little bit of ego, and they put pressure on themselves. Yeah, to perform. Like now I'm in this belt. Now I have to prove it. Well, if you approach the belt like your instructor knows what level you're at. If you approach the belt like you have to prove that color every day, I mean, you're gonna die. You're gonna go backwards, not forwards.
you're gonna die a slow, painful death.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I've seen guys get promoted and that would never win in competition, and then somehow they're winning at the next belt, And then I've seen guys who are just absolute destroyers and then get promoted and lose like 3 tournaments in a row and never compete again because they just couldn't hang at the next level. It's weird.
It all comes down to the individual.
Yep.
Yeah, that is fascinating. What's the biggest hurdle you guys face trying to do what you're doing, sourcing and creating in the United States? I mean, I think it was on the denim, it was grown and sewn in the U.S. That's when it's amazing. But there has to be some challenges associated with that because the route you're taking is certainly not the one that is the most traveled.
Yeah, it is the road less traveled. And, I think what's important to us isn't like, let's just say this. Let's say all of a sudden we wanted to import product. Okay, I'd be retired, right? So there's definitely, it's important. It's emotionally important to me that the supply chain is in America, and I'm talking about the little brass rivets on the jeans, that all the way down to the fiber, the cotton grown in the field, and that's an extreme circumstance. But you're cheating. For me, I'd be cheating you, or the company, or the foundation. I'd be cheating it. I'd be cheating it any other way, and it's all challenging. Like we are launching this boot line. I showed you some of those boots yesterday. Well, I knew going into it, and when Jocko and I talked at the end of last year about, hey, what are we doing this year? Well, the 2 things are the denim and the boots we really want to launch. And he was a little bit apprehensive about the boots, but he trusted that I could put the team together and find the old machines. And we had to bring freaking machines back from India, and we had to get them working again. I mean, the same story, right? Same story, but we had done it. We've done it before. So the biggest challenge, number one challenge, knowledge, people, human resources. This knowledge has been passed down on how to put this leather around a last and get it to stay. And so we've gone out and found they call them shoe dogs. We've gone and found the old shoe dogs that are really maybe a few years from leaving the earth. You know what I mean? And we just suck as much knowledge as we can. The first 2 guys I hired, they have a combined 80 years experience. Yeah, Henry and Mike. So 80 years experience. So
wow. Yeah, how can you replicate that?
You can't. You don't replicate it. You have to. If they go, it gets lost. That's it.
What's the most challenging thing on your side, Brian? Because I know you're focusing more on the supplementation side of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. And to continue with what Pete said, everything that we do throughout the brand is sourced from the United States. And I think what people don't understand is the economic effect. It doesn't, I had someone comment online, yeah, cool, you guys are, bringing jobs back to your area, whatever. And I'm like, they truly don't understand like the full economic impact. The fact that, everything from the cotton farmer to the processor to the person spinning the yarn and then getting it to our facility, and then all the truck drivers in between.
Do you have relationships with all those people along that way as well?
Yeah.
You go all the way back to where it's coming out of the ground?
Yep.
That's awesome.
And what we say is, you know what? If you showed up at the factory and you followed that truck back to the source, you're going to end up at a farm with a guy with his hands in the dirt. And
hence the grown and sewn.
There you go. So,
and on the nutritional division, like a simple item like a shaker cup, we refused to have one on the website for sale for the longest period of time. A couple of years, yeah, because we could not find a truly American-made shaker cup. It sounds crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. We finally just a few months ago found a company that would make custom American-made shaker cups for us, and actually 100% made in America. Yeah.
What do you find the average cost difference to be between something that you guys are demanding being made in America versus the volume you can get overseas? Because it's not, it's...
With vertical integration, I think those costs have decreased to 15%. If you're psycho like us and you want to build everything from scratch, could even be more. Things have changed with wages and things like that. So, our minimum wage in Maine, 3 years ago was $7.50. Mm-hmm. Our minimum wage now is $11. So, we actually that's a good challenge for us to meet, and the people deserve it. So, we got to get creative on the front end of things. We're not going to change the prices on stuff.
Yeah.
So we're just going to get more creative. We're going to think more outside the box, and that's what you got to do. And I think that's what makes. And I'm not saying just Americans, but from my experience, and in the history of, let's say, New England and my family that immigrated here from Greece, and I think a lot of us, like, that's what made us unique, is that we constantly had to think outside the box. And overseas, in some of these other places, let's say in Asia or whatever, where you're strictly a number in a line, making 5 cents an hour with bare feet, and there's no labor cost. Well, you don't have to think creatively. It's all about volume. Mm-hmm. And ours has nothing to do with volume. It has everything to do with the people. And retaining those people and retaining that knowledge and getting full buy-in from them to constantly improve the processes, constantly improve the products, and really take ownership over the whole thing. So it's just it's a free way of thinking. It's a free way of thinking.
I dig it for sure. You guys need to make a blue rift. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we will. So
we will.
We can sublimate that thing. I got to show you that.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, fully sublimated.
Can you make me a red, white, and blue?
Oh yeah, we could.
Rift, stars and stripes, oriented properly.
We could. Would you wear it if we made it?
Yeah. Can I get a soundtrack of a bald eagle flying around?
Yeah, you can. Definitely. We can stitch in like wires and headphones. And
I would wear the shit out of a red, white, and blue gi. It'd be an aggressive level of patriotism people aren't ready for.
Yeah.
Way over the top.
Well, and then people would be like, "Where'd you get that?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. You can't have it." Like the American flag wingsuit I have, they made one, and they're not making another one because it's a high-res image of the flag I wore on my shoulder for 10 years.
Wow.
So if you look at the wingsuit up close, you can see the abrasions and where it's worn off. It's definitely a one-off. And they're like, "Yeah, well, you're good." So,
wow.
Yeah, they're badass. They had to make.
That's cool.
I think they had to make 10 of them to line the seams up. That's how much effort that company put into it.
Yep. I bet.
They're awesome.
Probably.
They've been really good people.
Is this the
Squirrel. That's actually
That's
what
cool.
we were talking about. The company is called Squirrel that makes them, and most people just call those things squirrel suits, so they don't realize that they're correct but also incorrect at the same time. Yeah. So what's next for Origin? Next 2 years? What's the short-term goal? Other than, obviously, broad goal is take over the world.
Yeah, we're right now we're working on a big contract with a big retailer on the nutritional division, which we're moving forward with. Mm-hmm. But we're thinking outside the box on the future of retail and what that means to the consumer, which I'm not going to share those thoughts because some of them are, they're going to be based around technology. Mm-hmm. And Brian can expound on that. But on the manufacturing side, we're looking at another plant right now, another 20,000 square foot plant. So we can start to develop some of these ideas into physical processes with machines. And I would love to talk about it.
Probably premature to do so.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's going to change the face of manufacturing. And that's what I mean by Maine being the tip of the spear. It's truly going to change the face of manufacturing. And it's really friggin' exciting. So we'll be able to share more after I see if it's a patentable process.
Nice.
Or not. So... But yeah, and then just keep growing, and bringing folks back footwear in this area where we had Bash Shoe and Hayden Shoe and Dexter Shoe and these moguls in the shoe industry where the factories got shut down locally here, getting all those people back to work.
Did they get shut down largely just because of the volume and price point overseas?
Merger and acquisition.
Okay.
That's why. That's it. Merger and acquisition. Bass got bought out. Dexter Shoe got bought out by Berkshire Hathaway, and Harold Alphon passed a couple of years ago. And I guess in their contract after he passed, they could take it and go elsewhere. And so just mills getting shut down all around us, just watching that, watching people like retreat and looking at their hands, and instead of picking up a loom, or a pair of scissors, picking up a beer or a joint or whatever else they're picking up, and bringing that back, bringing that experience back, bringing that fulfillment back. And what's beautiful about that is with this social media thing, this internet thing, is that those folks who used to make this stuff, who would feel good at the end of the day by making it, now they can watch that product get into the person's hands.
Yeah, you can actually see the whole life cycle of it.
And then they communicate with them.
Yeah.
And
not all that communication is good.
Well,
the internet is an interesting place.
It is an interesting place. For us, it's a great thing.
I just think that everybody should have access to it, but if you're a moron, you should have a dial-up speed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's
Everybody
true.
should have equal access to the internet, but that doesn't mean that the speed should be the same. If all you do is just try to hate on people, you get dial-up from like the 1990s.
It's a 1997 dial-up.
Yeah, and if you're awesome, you get like broadband.
Yeah.
You can communicate more openly. The other thoughts will still make it there, but they have to like carry your pigeon to somebody who's going to manually input it. Yeah.
That's a long-term plan. And, I tell people if we're on a journey, which we are, we're climbing a mountain, we just got out of the car and we grabbed our backpack. That's it. We're just starting. I haven't even started sweating yet.
Tell me about the Immersion camp, because I know people are going to be interested in that as well.
Yeah. So the Immersion camp is the Origin Immersion camp. It's a jiu-jitsu camp. Funny because last year we had 40 or 50 people that have never trained jiu-jitsu.
I was going to ask you that if somebody
show
has
up
never
to train.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. We started it. This will be 8 or 9 years ago. We started camp, and we started with like 27 friends basically, and then we hit 30 people and then 50, and it just started to grow. And this year there'll be 2 sessions and 300 people per session coming in to the heart of Maine to this incredibly amazing summer camp on one of Maine's most pristine spring-fed lakes, Echo Lake in Mount Vernon, Maine. And they come.
We have an Echo Lake where I live too.
Oh, really?
I don't think it's spring-fed.
Yeah, glacial carved.
Probably.
Yeah. So they come in and we start out with just feeding them all you can eat lobster. Which my father-in-law, Joe, again, the champion of my life. Joe, you are the man. Goes and picks up on the coast that morning, and we eat and we train, and it's bunkhouse style living. It's like going to summer camp when you were a kid and enjoying the lake and paddleboarding and canoeing and kayaking and just being surrounded by people that have that sick passion for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of people with that awesomely sick passion for jiu-jitsu. And that's what it's all about. And we hang out for a week, and everybody comes home and comes back the next year.
I like it.
You coming?
I'll try to. Depends on the schedule. When is it?
August 25th to September 1st.
It's prime killing time.
Is it?
Yeah, for elk.
Fun to hunting, yeah.
Yeah.
It's prime killing time on the mats, too.
It is, but I can go up there and feed these Canadians Fireball, and then we can kumite. So there's always a chance to.
Yeah. Come for one session.
I'll try to come for as much of it as I can, for sure.
Yeah.
It's completely schedule dependent, and if I'm free or available, I'll definitely come because I have a pretty insatiable desire to continue training and just. It's awesome. I love it. I love how much I suck at it. I love just getting crushed. It's just, I don't know. I just kind of hop back up like, yes, let's do that again.
Yeah. It's a crazy thing, man. You when you're talking to somebody about rolling around with other dudes in your jammies, like
it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't
until
make
you
sense.
Do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I honestly don't talk about it a lot with people who don't train. Yeah, I have enough of a circle. They all train, but
well, we were talking yesterday. I was asking Pete what he thought the active participation in jiu-jitsu was worldwide, because people ask me all the time when it comes to skydiving, how many skydivers are there, how many base jumpers, and there's like a rough estimate for skydiving because at least in the US there's the United States Parachute Association that most people join, and it's in the tens of thousands, and base jumping is it might be in the single digit tens of thousands, but as far as jiu-jitsu goes, I mean his number was 600,000. Which, if you look at the global population of over 8 billion, that's like not even a drop in a bucket.
That's probably about right. Yeah.
But then if you're involved in it, it seems like everybody that you know is doing jiu-jitsu, and then you just realize those are the people you hang out with.
Exactly. Those are the ones you become your friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got my whole family into it. My father-in-law, he's one of my black belts. He's 63. He's
That's
competing in the
savage. That's
Worlds
awesome.
this year. He actually went down to Florida a couple months ago and won in a tournament down there. I got my brother-in-law into it after 8 years of harassing him,
Cajoling.
Yeah.
And
he's kind of an animal, strong, and they're all freaking like woodsmen and just dudes that are working with their hands.
Yeah.
So they all got massive calluses and nasty grips and incredible tensile strength, and it's a good time, man.
Yeah. It's tough. It is hard to describe, and it doesn't make sense when you're trying to, what are you doing in your afternoon again? Like, never mind.
Exactly. Never mind.
It almost seems like a conversation ender as opposed to a starter sometimes. Like I'm telling you, my buddy who would just not shut up for 6 months. I'm just like, stop talking. I don't want to go do that.
How could he have approached you better? Like, what's a better approach to get somebody to start training?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. He probably took the only approach that's going to work with me, which is just a hammer to my forehead over time. And finally, I'm like, all right, I have a headache. Leave me alone. I guess you could invite somebody to come. So they do buddy week a lot at our gym, but I think that could also be overwhelming for the wrong personality type because you're coming into something you don't understand. And you got your gi on that's borrowed, and you're like, what are these drills? What are we doing? What would be the best way?
I've tried one
I don't
technique.
know. What do you guys
I've tried
recommend?
one technique I've never shared, and I've only done it with like my family members, which is, we'll be on vacation or something, and of course everyone gets a little bored on vacation, and I just sit on my butt on the carpet and be like, hey, get by my legs.
Yeah. That's how I started playing with my kids. So I went first, and they would just want to start to wrestle, and they couldn't
exactly.
get around, and then they start laughing. Then they stop laughing.
Yeah,
then they start sweating.
Trying.
Then they start trying.
Yeah.
And then the harder they dive in, it's just like, yes.
Whoa, yeah, exactly.
And so, all three of them got started. Then a little bit of a hiatus right now because they're doing summertime activities. But it's, I can't think of a more positive life skill, especially for my daughter, because it's a matter of time. It's not a matter of if that some douchebag in her life is going to pull some shit. And I can't think of anything I could do to help her navigate life and give her the skills to just crush that particular douchebag.
Daughters make you vulnerable, man.
Yeah.
They change you.
Yeah. They got to be protected, and you got to do everything you can. So,
100%.
Yeah. Where can they find more information about Origin?
OriginMaine.com.
Mm-hmm.
Maine, like the state, and it's actually a state. A lot of people don't realize that. The countries, there's some folks in the country who are not highly intelligent, and they don't even know Maine exists.
I would say a lot more than you would
Yeah.
think.
Most people,
state.
well, I'm
People
not
from
going to say
Maine,
most
they're
people.
like,
I've
street?
seen like the internet where they ask people how many states are in the U.S. and they give the wrong answer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not good.
Wow.
We're not northern Massachusetts. We're actually more in Canada than the U.S. because we shoot up there in like Montreal's 3.5 hours, and we're up there.
So just originmaine.com.
OriginMaine.com, man.
Yeah, resource.
And, absolutely. And we've got YouTube channel and a podcast. And
Yep. What's the podcast?
It's Hands and Daylight.
Hands in Daylight.
And the idea of that, and the reason it's called Hands and Daylight, is because back to my father-in-law Joe, we're driving up through Maine one day, and I was just thinking, like, if you go into the woods, you'll run into a rock wall. There's rock walls everywhere, and Maine used to be 90% field, 90% fields. Now it's a great boreal wilderness.
It's dense for people who've never been here. You're talking 5 feet in, and you're in essentially the jungle.
Yeah, it's thick, and if you go into the woods, you'll hit these stone walls. And I just asked one day, I was like, man, how did they freaking do that? Like, build those fields and move those stones? And he said, hands in daylight. You either do or you die, and that is
Love it.
the epitome of what we do. You either do or you die. Put yourself in a position. Put your back against the wall. Make it happen. And it sounds simple. And if you don't play too many mental gymnastics with yourself, why not? Why not?
That's the best ending right there. Thank you, gents, for the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Hell yeah. All right,
Thanks for
let's
having
go
us
roll.
on, Andy. All right, let's go.